Hello, my name is Tom Graham. I am an associate planner here at MORPC, where I work alongside Nate Vogt to administer OPWC District 3 infrastructure funding. As applicants are preparing to apply for state fiscal year 23 infrastructure funding, we wanted to prepare this short presentation to provide a brief overview of both the infrastructure programs, that being the SCIP and LTIP program, and also highlight some of the changes to the District 3 process and criteria for this upcoming application round. Just to make sure that everyone's in the right place, a brief overview on OPWC funding statewide. This state funding is provided for local infrastructure, and it's allocated to 19 districts across the state. Here at MORPC, we're only administering OPWC District 3, which is just Franklin County. And for fiscal year 23, in District 3, we're expecting about $27 million in total to be available. If you're not in Franklin County and you're looking for information on how to apply for OPWC funding, this link on this slide will take you to the OPWC webpage, where you can access information about whatever district you're in, and additionally contact information for the district liaisons so that you can reach out to them, understand when that district is accepting applications, and get additional information on their evaluation criteria, as it does differ between districts. Generally, eligibility for the SCIP and LTIP programs is identified here. Important to note, while the SCIP program can fund water, wastewater, stormwater, and solid waste projects, the LTIP program is only for transportation projects. Additionally, there's a difference in terms of what funding is available between the two programs. While SCIP provides funding in the form of grants, loans, and loan assistance, LTIP is grant only. Finally, the upcoming application cycle, which applicants are currently preparing applications for, is for funding that will be available in fiscal year 23. And by OPWC's rules, these projects must start construction between July 1st of 2022 and May 31st of 2023. As we work towards the application itself, there are going to be two key components of that application. The first is going to be all of the OPWC required information. This is a standard form and standard attachments required for all districts statewide to submit. These requirements include the standard form, which was formerly a fillable PDF, but is now available via an online web portal, which I'll go into some more information on the next slide. But additionally, required attachments will be authorizing legislation, financial certification, a certified engineer's cost estimate, the weighted useful life statement, and a project map. Separately, the information that District 3 utilizes to evaluate applications also needs to be submitted, and this is specific to District 3. On the District 3 webpage on MORPC's website, which you can access via the link on this slide, you'll be able to find our supplemental application, which also identifies all of our required attachments. This supplemental application is available in the form of a Word document, and will include all of the questions which applicants are required to answer that allow us to evaluate applications. A number of these questions will also require that you attach supportive documentation as evidence of physical condition or of public involvement, amongst other necessary supportive documentation. All of that is called out in our supplemental application, and it will all be attached to your final application when you submit it. So, as I mentioned a moment ago, the statewide fillable PDF form has been replaced by the public WorksWise online portal. This is something that OPWC has rolled out for fiscal year 23. This is the first time that they'll be using this form. So this online portal allows you to create records for each individual application in which you'll fill out all of that standard information. Additionally, you'll upload all of those required attachments to this online form. Furthermore, we are going to ask that you upload the District 3 application supplement to that online form as well as all of that supplemental documentation that we require for evaluation. One thing to note is that To gain access to the online portal, you do need to request a login via registering with OPWC. This is accessible via the web link on the bottom of this slide, and OPWC will reach back out to you, providing you with that login. These logins will be specifically linked to the jurisdiction that you are submitting for. Furthermore, if you're going to be having a consultant work on your application, you will need to submit a letter from each local jurisdiction identifying that X consultant is eligible and should be able to access whichever application you're asking them to work on. A template for that letter is also available on the OPWC webpage linked here. One thing to note that is a little different than the rest of the state, as it's something specific to OPWC District 3 here in Franklin County, is that we allow applicants to submit different funding requests between the SCIP and LTIP programs. This functionality isn't directly built into this online portal, so what we're going to ask applicants to do is that once they fill out an entire application for, say, the SCIP funding proposal, there's the ability to copy a record within the WorksWise portal, and we're going to ask that you copy that record, keep everything else the same, but only change the funding request in the copy of that record, so that in the end it'll look as if you're submitting 2 applications for the same project. And one of those will have your LTIP funding request, one of them will have your SCIP funding request, and on the back end we'll go ahead and compile that all back together again. So apologies that that's a little bit convoluted, but we think this will create the least amount of legwork for applicants while submitting their applications, and hopefully still stay pretty streamlined within the OPWC online portal. And then finally, more details on how to navigate this online portal are available on the OPWC webpage as well. They've done a couple of online training sessions and presentations, which you can find recordings of at this link. Couple of changes specific to District 3. We have a couple of procedural changes. We also have a couple of criteria changes for this fiscal year 23 application round. The first is that we've noticed we want to set up more time to work with applicants as they're preparing these applications. We understand that these applications are asking for quite a lot of information, and we want to make sure we're getting ahead of any of that confusion that you may have. So in an effort to do that, both myself and Nate have gone ahead and blocked off Tuesday mornings through the application due date. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions, and we'll go ahead and set up times to meet with applicants and answer whatever questions you may have. Additionally, though, if Tuesday mornings, if you don't have time, then still reach out to us. We'll find other time on our schedule. We just want to make sure that one way or another, we're able to answer the questions that applicants have as they're preparing these applications. A separate procedural change, if you've applied in the past, you may have noticed that we used to assess scoring penalties to applications for missing or incomplete information at the time of their final application submittal. In an effort to not penalize good projects for those minor mistakes, we've removed penalties altogether. And for this next round, we'll be notifying applicants by October 1st of any missing or incomplete information needed for the OPWC application, and allowing applicants 5 working days to provide that information and cure their application. Additionally, as we work through the evaluation process in the District 3 supplement to the application, we will reach out to applicants and request any missing supportive documentation. We recognize that we are asking for a lot of attachments, and it's pretty easy to make a mistake and forget to attach one document when you're submitting the final application. And we want to make sure that we're allowing some extra time if those mistakes were made to cure those mistakes. And therefore, we've set a deadline of November 12th to submit any missing supportive documentation. The reason this deadline exists is because by November 19th, we want to have draft scoring available for all projects submitted. So still need to build ourselves in a little bit of time to finalize evaluation of the projects. Additionally, we've made some changes to our scoring criteria. I'll go into more detail in the next couple of slides, but we've made some changes to our crash scoring to increase an emphasis on fatal and serious injury crashes. We've also created some fixed ranges for average daily traffic when scoring the service to district criteria for road and bridge projects. And then we've created some more nuanced scoring options to better capture the differences between projects when evaluating based off of the ped, bike, and transit accommodations criteria. Furthermore, after the evaluation process, we've built a little bit more time into the schedule than we have in the past to ensure that we have time to meet with applicants, review the draft scoring of the applications, and just generally ensure that our evaluation of all the projects is consistent. Furthermore, we've made a change in terms of how we award funds to a project. As I noted earlier, you can submit for both SCIP and LTIP funding, though a project is only eligible to receive funding from one of those programs. So we have different weights for our scoring criteria for each of these programs, and therefore we end up with different rankings between the two programs. And in the past, we had a somewhat complicated system of awarding funds to a project via the program where they scored a higher ratio of total possible points, but we wanted to make it a little bit simpler, a little less confusing, and in an effort to do that, moving forward, we'll be awarding funds down the LTIP rankings first, and then once LTIP funds are exhausted, we'll switch over and begin awarding funds to projects on the SCIP rankings. Again, the goal here is just to make the application process and award process a little simpler, a little easier to understand. Get into the specific changes to scoring criteria. I'll start with our new crash scoring. As you can see here, our previous methodology was largely focused on overall crash frequency or density and crash rate, as well as the severity index. In an effort to increase emphasis on fatal and serious injury crashes, which is more in line with FHWA performance measures, we've added in specifically the fatal and serious injury crash frequency or density, the fatal and serious injury crash rate, and also the fatal and serious injury ped and bike crash frequency or density. We've still kept in as one of the criteria or one of the aspects of the methodology, the overall crash frequency or density, but generally the change here is to move towards a higher emphasis on those fatal and serious injury crashes. As you're working through the District 3 supplemental application, this is now going to be the scoring table that you will see under the A3 crashes criteria. As you can see, it's including all of these new criteria that we've added for this fiscal year 23 application round. Next change is in the A10 service to district criteria. Previously, we would score these applications based on a dynamic range where we would receive all of the applications, look at the average daily traffic amongst them, find natural breaking points in that distribution, and then award points accordingly. Though this didn't really allow applicants to pre-score their own applications and understand how competitive they may be. So for this upcoming round, we've gone ahead and set these ADT ranges for each of the scores, for each of the scoring ranges under this criteria. Again, this change is only impacting road and bridge projects, but our goal here is to make it a little easier on applicants to better judge how competitive their application may be. Our final criteria change was to the ped, bike, and transit accommodations. In the past, we only had the ability to award a project 5 points if they included the appropriate accommodations, or 0 points if they did not. And this really inhibited our ability to capture the nuance between projects that, while they may not be providing all of the accommodations, they are still improving the accommodations. And that put us in a spot where we weren't really able to accurately score the project under this criteria. So for the upcoming round, we've added the ability to score either 3 points or 1 point under this criteria. The goal here, again, is just to capture more of that nuance between projects and be more transparent in how we're scoring the ped, bike, and transit accommodations criteria. I touched on this a bit earlier, but I will touch on it one more time. We're moving to awarding funding from LTIP in rank order first, and then once that is depleted, then awarding funding from SCIP in rank order. One thing to note, if a project is right on the edge of receiving LTIP funding and they would only receive a partial part of their request, we will still award that project from whichever program it's going to receive the larger total award amount. So if the goal here is that if you're only going to receive partial funding in the LTIP program, and you may receive some more funding in the SCIP program, we're still going to maximize the amount of assistance that you would receive. This brings us to the schedule for this application round. Applications are going to be due on September 13th. As you're working on preparing those applications and preparing to submit them in the WorksWise portal, remember you're going to need to request a login from OPWC to have access to that online portal, so better to do that sooner rather than later. And additionally, continue reaching out to myself and Nate with any questions you may have. We want to make sure we're being as helpful as possible as you're working through these applications. That will then lead us into our evaluation period, and it'll bring us to November 19th, where the Public Works Integrating Committee will meet for what we're calling the scoring session. That'll then bring us to December 3rd, where draft scoring will be provided to the PWIC and their discussion of any potential evaluation concerns will be addressed. All of that will lead to December 17th, which will be the final meeting of the PWIC for this cycle. At this final action meeting, they will be approving final slates for both SCIP and LTIP funding awards. Following that, projects which receive funding will work with OPWC to prepare their project agreements, and they will then be prepared to begin construction on July 1st of 2022. So with that, that's all I have for this presentation. I hope that this has been helpful for anyone who's preparing an application for this cycle. Again, as you're working through that process, please reach out to either Nate or myself if you have any questions or any concerns, and we'll be happy to help you through the process in any way that we can. So with that, look forward to seeing everyone's applications, and I hope you all have a great day.